I actually listen to people.
U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is a rising star in the Republican Party, and like many Cuban-Americans, he takes a tough stance on Cuba, favoring the U.S. trade embargo on the communist regime.
They should have the right to the same political liberties and freedoms that we enjoy here, and the embargo gives us leverage to make sure that that can happen.
But in Miami, home to more than 800,000 Cuban-Americans, that long-standing hostility may be waning. Most at this meeting are former hardline exiles, forced to flee their homeland after the 1959 revolution. Now they've switched camps and joined a majority of Cuban-Americans calling for a U.S. policy rethink.
The embargo, making things tougher on the government of Cuba, etc., has failed utterly and miserably.
It's who and what we are.
Meanwhile, a newer generation of less ideological Cuban-Americans is coming of age. This non-partisan, tech-savvy group sends cell phones to Cuba. It avoids politics and uses the internet instead of fiery rhetoric to help bring about change.
Our focus is reconnecting with our roots, with our heritage, and reaching out to our counterparts on the island.
But the moderates in Miami's Cuban-American community have so far failed to reach the corridors of power. They blame political apathy among the young.
Older Cuban-Americans tend to vote more often than younger Cuban-Americans who have family and friends still left in Cuba.
Meanwhile, in Washington, hardliners reject claims that voters may be shifting away from their views.
People, when they vote for me, they know what they're voting for. And yet every 2 years, the constituency that we represent, they vote for the hardline position regarding Cuba.
But what isn't changing in Miami is that emotions over Cuba still run deep. Aging anti-Castro loyalists, younger moderates, and political experts alike agree that the big change will only come when the communist government is no longer in power in Cuba.